Throughout human history, there have been diseases so devastating and unforgiving that survival was nearly impossible. These were not just illnesses. They were nightmares that swept across continents, left cities in ruins, and rewrote the course of civilization. In this video, we're diving into the 5 worst diseases in history that people simply couldn't survive. From ancient pandemics to modern-day horrors, each of these illnesses left behind a trail of suffering so immense that it still echoes today. And by the end, you'll be amazed and a little more grateful for the medical advances we now have. Let's begin in 165 AD, deep within the Roman Empire, where the Antonine Plague struck without warning. Roman soldiers returning from battle in the East carried with them more than just war wounds. They brought an invisible killer that would soon become one of the earliest recorded pandemics. Most historians believe it was smallpox. The symptoms were horrifying: high fevers, relentless diarrhea, sore throats, and an unrelenting rash. But what followed was worse. Over 15 years, this plague killed an estimated 5 million people, including co-emperor Lucius Verus. The disease didn't just bring death, it brought collapse. The Roman army was crippled, trade routes crumbled, and the empire, once a symbol of strength and order, began to unravel. The Antonine Plague exposed just how helpless even the greatest civilizations were when faced with a disease no one understood. Jump forward more than 1,000 years to 1976, and we meet one of the most terrifying viruses ever discovered: Ebola Zaire. Found in a remote village near the Ebola River in what's now the Democratic Republic of Congo, this virus didn't just kill, it obliterated. Ebola Zaire had a fatality rate of 88%. Imagine that, nearly 9 out of every 10 people who caught it died in agony. Symptoms included high fevers, vomiting blood, and uncontrollable internal bleeding. Victims bled from their eyes, noses, and mouths. Organs failed rapidly, and death came within days. Entire families were lost. Villages were isolated, sealed off, and in some cases, simply left to die. Even today, with better awareness and treatment options, Ebola continues to reemerge. And while modern medicine can help, nothing erases the fear of a virus this vicious. Of course, no list of the deadliest diseases in history would be complete without mentioning the Black Death. In the 1340s, this strain of bubonic plague exploded across Europe, Asia, and North Africa, ultimately killing more than 200 million people. That's right, 200 million lives lost in just a few short years. At its height, Europe saw nearly half of its population vanish. It started with a strange swelling under the arms or in the groin, painful black buboes. Soon came the fever, vomiting, and bleeding. Death followed within days. People were so terrified they abandoned their own family members. Entire towns emptied overnight. The few doctors available wore bizarre bird-like masks filled with herbs, believing it would protect them from what they thought was bad air. But the plague didn't care about your beliefs, your class, or your faith. It changed the very structure of society, collapsing economies, ending wars, and giving rise to massive religious and social shifts. For most who caught it, there was no hope, just a short, painful descent into death. Next comes a disease that tormented humanity for millennia: smallpox. Unlike other plagues, smallpox didn't come and go, it lingered. Its deadly grip lasted for thousands of years, eventually killing over 300 million people in just the last century of its existence. Victims suffered from severe fever, back pain, and a brutal rash that turned into pus-filled sores covering the body. Survivors, if they lived, were often left permanently scarred or blinded. But survival wasn't common. Smallpox was especially catastrophic when it reached the Americas. European explorers carried the virus with them, and indigenous populations, completely unprepared, were decimated. Some tribes lost 80 to 90% of their people. Whole civilizations collapsed. And yet, for centuries, there was no cure. It wasn't until 1980 that smallpox was officially eradicated by the World Health Organization. It remains the only human disease we've successfully wiped out, but the memory of its destruction still lingers, and should it ever return, we may not be ready. And finally, we arrive at perhaps the most chilling disease of all, rabies. Today, we think of it as a rare but treatable virus, mainly affecting animals. But before the advent of vaccines, rabies was a guaranteed death sentence. Once symptoms began, there was no turning back. It started subtly, maybe a headache, some tingling around the bite. But within days, the infection would assault the brain. Victims experienced hallucinations, extreme confusion, violent spasms, and a terrifying fear of water, hydrophobia. Just trying to drink would cause uncontrollable convulsions. Death came swiftly, often within a week, and always in agony. It's one of the few diseases in history with an almost 100% fatality rate once symptoms appear. Even now, in parts of the world without access to proper treatment, people continue to die from rabies. It's a silent, relentless killer, and one of the few that still haunts us today. So what do all these terrifying diseases teach us? For centuries, humanity lived in constant fear of invisible enemies. A single cough, a contaminated wound, or a stray mosquito could spell the end. These weren't just public health crises. They were existential threats that toppled empires, changed societies, and reminded us how vulnerable we truly are. The good news? We've come a long way. Vaccines, antibiotics, global health organizations, all of these have given us weapons that our ancestors never had. But history has a habit of repeating itself, and in a world more connected than ever, we'd be wise not to let our guard down. Thanks for watching. If this video gave you a deeper appreciation for how far medicine has come and how much we still have to protect, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Which disease shocked you the most? Let us know below. Until next time, stay informed, stay safe, and never take your health for granted.